Hey, what's up everybody? Dan Wells here, talk about the TNT M80 jig from TNT Baits. I've been a jig fisherman since I can remember picking up a rod and reel. One huge problem is jigs have always been oriented towards largemouth. Spotted bass fishing is now the new deal, man. There's gigantic spots in all these lakes and nobody's ever built a jig really to target those. Well, I have. I've designed it with TNT baits and we have built the perfect spotted bass jig. If you want to catch big spots, this is the jig you need to be throwing. All right, now we're gonna take a closer look to show you what really makes the M80 jig and what it's all about. The guts of the M80 jig. Now, it's pretty simple. The guts of the jig start with the head design, the hook design, everything like this. This is what truly makes a very good spotted bass jig. On the M80 jig, we started with number one, a Mustad needlepoint hook, but actually what makes this hook unique and much better and much superior of a spotted bass hook is a 60-degree line tie angle, which means instead of it being a 90-degree, which would have your line tie directly pointed up, it's at a 60-degree angle. That increases a little bit of hook to gap ratio, and it also gives you just a little bit better pull point on the jig. Now, with that being said, the line tie is parallel with the point of the jig. I don't care for the line ties that sit flat face out from the jig because it gives you too much air to where that your hook set angle, your line angle can get off. If you have a hoop, a line tie that runs to where it's flat in front of the jig like this, your knot can slide off to one side or the other side, increasing. So what's going to happen is you set the hook, and if you're not sitting over here and all that tension gets brought up and you snap it, the jig's going to want to turn like this in the fish's mouth. That's a bad deal. So what you want is you want the actual line tie and hook point running parallel. No matter where this jig is in the water, if it's in the fish's mouth or nothing, I know that my knot is at the tip of that line tie, and when I set the hook on that fish, I'm gonna be pulling it straight out of her mouth, and I'm gonna put steel to mouth real quick. Number two, it's actually the trailer retainer on the bait. What we did was we had the standard collar on it, which is where your skirt material gets tied. But behind that, we dropped back the actual barb portion, which is what retains your plastic trailer, whatever. I mean, the number one trailer out there is still by far probably a double tail grub or a chigger craw. So what we did was we made a double point barb retainer. So that way when you put your bait on there and you slide that double tail grub up over it, you have 2 points of contact with that soft plastic, gonna keep that thing butted up against that skirt tie a little bit. So a lot of times in spotted bass fishing, you're gonna get bit, you're gonna get a slight tick, you're gonna set the hook on her, and you're gonna miss the fish. But if you click your reel, disengage it, feed that jig back to that fish, you'll get bit again. The benefit with the double barb collar is it's gonna keep that soft plastic bait bedded up there and keep that bait compact. If you didn't have that collar on there, every time you set the hook, that soft plastic trailer comes sliding down the shank and you got a messed up looking bait down there. So we have the line tie, we have the collar. Now, like I said, the Mustad point, needle point, it is a light wire hook. But what makes the Mustad really, truly the best spotted bass hook out there in a jig is the way they design it by crimping the actual shank of the hook to give it a little bit increased strength where it's not going to open up on you as bad. When you start fishing 40, 50 feet deep with 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon, you know, and you have a long rod and all that stuff, and you really set the hook on a fish hard and you start moving all that line, you don't want no flex in that. That's always been the problem with a light wire hook, is the flex. Mustad has found a way to actually eliminate flex out of a light wire hook. So this system right here, all together between the hook we've chosen, the way we mold it, the double barb and the collar on it, is truly the best jig head out there. And let alone from the painting process that TNT Baits has with a double powder coat and then epoxy coat over it, this is by far the most scratch, chip, dent resistant lead head you will ever fish in your life. The next part of building a truly great spotted bass jig is a skirt design. I built 6 colors in the M80 line. You can take this thing anywhere around the country where spotted bass live, and you're gonna have a color that's gonna match bait fish and bottom composition. The key to building a really good skirt, other than just color factor, is how you layer it, what materials you use. Living rubber, silicone, how big is silicone, and how many strands of each. That's really the true science of it. And once you put these things in the water next to another bait and see how we've designed them, you'll start seeing colors pop and flare where they're supposed to flare. The weed guard on the M80 spotted bass jig, we've actually had custom designed for this drivetrain of this jig specifically. And what it is we've actually matched the color to the head, obviously, pretty standard, but we actually made it to where the overall diameter of the fibers matches the exact inside diameter of the hole in the head. This results in a very, very clean adhesion process. The guys over at TNT have this down to a science. When they insert this weed guard into this jig head, you'll never get any glue or resin coming up the weed guard to where it starts to stiffen it up. So this weed guard is going to bend from the tip of it all the way right to the head in a perfect motion. You're never going to have none of that access coming up here, which is going to hinder hook sets. All right, everybody, I've showed you the perfect drivetrain for this spotted bass jig. The way I've designed it with the 60-degree line tie, the hook parallel to the point, the ring and the double barb collar on it, the way I've decided to tie the jig on this thing for the perfect flare, the perfect pop, and the perfect colors to match anywhere I'm fishing in the country to catch a giant spotted bass. Everybody, again, I'm Dan Wells here for TNT Baits. Please go to the website tntbaits.com to get more information. You can pick these things up at any of your local retailers. And if you have any pictures of big spots that you catch on my jig, please send them in.